Greetings. This is Ensnews1 with The Weekender for the weekend of April 18, 2022. I'm Michelle Crawford Sapinter, the General Manager for Ensnews1 Enlight News Source. This weekend we have a few matters that are quite controversial today in the news. One of those issues has to do with voting rights. Another has to do with school security. In the United States today, we are faced with matters of questioning the situation that involves the voting rights of, in particular, whites versus Hispanics and blacks. Listening to Senator Cory Booker just earlier today, the senator commented on how the waiting time for blacks and Hispanics in black and Hispanic communities is quite extensive for getting to the poll or getting to the voting machine. I think that some of the issues that we're looking at has to do with possibly with taxation and the fact that the HAVA Act is not operating in a manner to provide for the funding for an increase in voting systems. And I think that addressing the Help America Vote Act will resolve some of the problems with waiting time and enable voters to get to a voting machine within a reasonable period of time. That's something that the senator questioned, and I think it's a very serious matter, and a portion can be resolved with an increase in voting machines. But there was also another matter that the senator spoke on, and that matter was having to do with safe schools. I think what we can reflect on at this point is the fact that we do know that our schools have been accosted. There's been violence in our schools, in the public school system. And one of the issues that I think is necessary to point out is that, let's just look at this situation. In 1960, when I was growing up, in 1960s, in 1970, well, in 1960 I was 3 years old, but in the 60s I did attend elementary school, and I attended middle school in the 70s. One of the things that was so very commonplace was the fact that as we approached the school campus, we didn't have security. We were able to enter into the doors of the school without security, and we were able to get to our classes and the restrooms without having much security. We had school hall attendants, and that was mostly to keep students out of the hallways and going to and from their classes as expected. Well, that was the 60s and 70s. Today, we have a much different issue in society. What we have in society is multiple events whereby our schools have been attacked by gun violence, by knifings, and even bomb threats. So I think what has to happen, where there is a matter of a code that can be addressed, that has to do with the safety and protection of students, is to look upon the fact that we are in a different era and there are very different things happening. And because we are in this era, not in the past, we have to deal with matters in terms of statutes, in terms of legislation that aptly respond to the needs of the students, to protect those students while they are at school. These are matters of the USCO code, the Unsafe School Code option, and these matters can be addressed by our senators and our congressmen in each state, who can also bring these issues to the attention of the Department of Education. These are some very necessary issues. We are currently lamenting the news of yet another violent act and the death of a 14-year-old student who was knifed in Kansas City Middle School. These are the types of things that have to be addressed Is it possible for something like this to occur in any school in our nation? And the reason why is because we don't have the adequate security necessary to protect, to come under or live up to the law that says schools and school systems must protect the students. Well, I would think, as a grandmother and as a mother, I would think that what may be necessary would be scanners, the wands that are used as you go into some places in public. There are wands that scan the exterior of the person to detect whether there are any devices that should not be on the person entering into the building. But there are also other such devices, such as ghost firearms and knives. Well, in that instance, what is necessary is to have the dome scan that is situated at the door, that as a student walks into the door, this dome scan will detect any type of device and perhaps also provide enough information for security to know that they should check a person thoroughly or more thoroughly. There's also the scan system whereby bags and possibly the person walks through the scanner, the dome scanner, and the bags are run through also through a scanner on a scale. Well, if this is necessary to protect the students, if these things are necessary to have in place in schools to protect the students, then why are they not there? Why is there a problem with actually putting the law to work to protect the students? I think that's a good question for Congress to address and for the Senate to address, and we as the American public are asking, please address these issues, because students should not be in fear and should not be threatened when they enter into school to get an education. And finally, there is a matter of addressing the situation that was mentioned also as I listened to Senator Tim Scott today. Senator Scott, in part of his speaking today, spoke on the matter of how the Senate, the Republican Senate, is being entreated by Democrats, for instance. Well, I would like to state, and I want to say that I am a Democrat. However, I think what we as the American public encountered were about 2 or 3 things that have affected the image of the Republican Senate. And that is having to do with the 2 impeachments and the fact that our president did not respond in kind to those subpoenas that were issued to him to respond to the questions. And the questions were about interference by Russia with the 2016 election. There was a question about whether there was collusion between President Trump and Russia. There was also some question about how and whether it was a just manner of handling President Zelensky of the Ukraine by President Trump, and whether or not, according to the spin on that matter, whether there was a matter of dangling military funding in the face of President Zelensky. Well, what we saw, that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is what we saw in the Senate was a matter of loyalty. A matter of loyalty in the face of the fact that Americans who put members of the Senate in place wanted to know whether these things were true. These are allegations that were made, and we did not get an adequate response. And all that the Senate gave us was, he didn't do anything. He's totally innocent. He didn't do anything. That's just not good enough. It wasn't good enough for millions of Americans who voted for President Joe Biden, and that's very evident. So what number 3 is that we really should have seen Republicans respond in a manner to show concern for the people who put them in place. Show some concern for the people who said, we want you there, but we need to get some answers about these things that are happening. If we could get answers for those things, we might be able to move forward and eliminate some of the arguments that we have even today. Well, those are the issues that are a matter of conversation today, and you'll find more on these issues in ENS News 1 The Weekender. We hope you stick around and read, and thank you for stopping by.